The great chamber of the Galactic Council floated in space above the planet Zenith Prime. Inside, hundreds of alien species gathered to witness what they called a historic moment. The lights were bright and the air hummed with the sound of countless translation devices turning alien speech into words everyone could understand. Ambassador Kelrick stood at the center of the room. His body was made of crystal that caught the light and threw it in all directions. He was tall, much taller than a human, and his voice echoed through the chamber like music played on glass instruments. "The humans have agreed to our demands," Kelrick announced. His words brought immediate silence. "They will leave all colony worlds. They will return to their home system. They have 1 month to complete the withdrawal." The chamber erupted in celebration. Aliens of every shape and size clicked, whistled, hummed, and roared their approval. The Vrexian matriarch, a creature with 6 eyes and skin like polished stone, raised her arms high. The Centauri delegation, massive beings that looked like walking mountains, stamped their feet so hard the floor shook. For 200 years, the Council had watched humanity spread across the galaxy. The humans had arrived late to the cosmic stage, but they moved fast. Too fast. In just 2 centuries, they had built colonies on 47 worlds. They had made friends with dozens of alien races. They had developed weapons and ships that rivaled civilizations thousands of years older. The Council had grown afraid, not of human aggression but of human potential, so they had made their move. New laws, new restrictions, new demands, and to everyone's surprise, the humans had agreed to everything. "They are finally learning their place," said High Counselor Dravik, his voice like rocks grinding together.
"Perhaps they are not as foolish as we thought." Far from the council chambers on the bridge of the Earthship Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison watched his homeworld shrink in the viewing screen.
He was a man of average height with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many years of service. His hands were clasped behind his back and his jaw was tight. "Status report," he said quietly. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her station. She was younger than Jake, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her fingers moved across her control panel with practiced ease. "All civilian transports have cleared the outer colonies," she reported. "The last families left New Detroit 3 hours ago. Military vessels are moving to rally points as ordered." "And the other protocols?" Jake asked. He did not turn from the screen. Lisa glanced around the bridge. The other crew members were focused on their work, but she lowered her voice anyway. "All contingency systems are active, sir. Everything is in place. They will never know what hit them." Jake allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Good. The Council had made a critical mistake. They had watched humans negotiate and compromise for months. They had seen humanity's diplomats smile and bow and accept every demand. They had mistaken politeness for weakness. They had confused patience with surrender. What the Council did not know was that humans had been preparing for this exact situation for over a century. Since the day humanity first met alien life, Earth's leaders had understood a simple truth. The galaxy was not always friendly to newcomers. "Hope for peace," they had said, "but prepare for war." On the colony world of New Detroit, the last transport ship lifted off from the spaceport. The human colonists looked down at the world they had built with their own hands. Cities with gleaming towers, farms that stretched to the horizon, roads and railways connecting everything together. They had spent 30 years building this world, and now they were leaving it all behind. Or so it seemed. Deep beneath the surface of New Detroit, in tunnels and chambers the Council's inspectors had never found, machines hummed to life. Computer systems activated, defensive platforms powered up. Automated factories began their work. All of it hidden, all of it waiting. The same thing was happening on 46 other worlds. As humans left through the front door, they armed the house through the back. In orbit around Earth, Director Kyle Chen stood in a command center buried deep inside a mountain. The room was filled with screens showing data from across the galaxy. Analysts sat at workstations, their faces lit by the glow of their monitors. Everyone worked in focused silence. Kyle was in his 50s with short black hair going gray at the temples. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations. He did not need medals to prove his authority. Everyone in the room knew who he was and what he could do. "Status of Operation Homecoming?" he asked. An analyst named Amy Brooks looked up. She was young but competent, chosen for this position because she never panicked under pressure. "Phase 1 is complete, Director. All colonists have been evacuated. Military assets are in position. The Council believes we are retreating to Earth. And the truth? Amy allowed herself a small smile. We have ships in every major Council system. Stealth platforms are active. Automated defense networks are online. We are not retreating, sir. We are repositioning. Kyle nodded. He walked to the main viewing screen, which showed a map of the galaxy. 47 points of light marked the human colonies. Thousands of smaller lights showed the positions of human ships, platforms, and hidden assets that the Council knew nothing about. The Council thinks they have won, Kyle said softly. They think humanity is weak. They think we surrendered without a fight. Let them think it, said General Pete Harris, who had just entered the command center. Pete was old, in his 70s, but still strong. His uniform displayed a lifetime of service. By the time they realize the truth, it will be too late. Kyle turned to face him. You are certain this will work? Sir, I spent 40 years in the military, Pete said. I learned one thing above all else. The enemy you see is not the enemy you should fear. The enemy you do not see is the one who will destroy you. Right now, the Council sees nothing. They see humans running away with their tails between their legs. They do not see the trap closing around them. Back on the horizon, Jake Morrison finally turned away from the viewing screen. His crew watched him, waiting for orders. Set course for the staging area, he said, and send the signal. Let everyone know we are ready. Lisa nodded and began entering commands. Signal sent, sir. All units report ready status. Jake sat down in his command chair. In 1 month, the Council would move to occupy the human colonies. They would celebrate their victory. They would divide the spoils among themselves. They would think humanity had been defeated, and then they would learn the truth. The humans had not left in defeat. They had left in preparation. They had not surrendered. They had set the stage for the greatest surprise in galactic history. Captain, Lisa said quietly, do you think they will really fall for it? Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. They already have, Lieutenant. They already have. The horizon turned away from Earth and jumped to faster than light speed. Behind it, thousands of other human ships did the same. To any observer, it looked like a full retreat, a defeated species returning home. But appearances can be deceiving. And humanity had always been very good at deception. 3 weeks had passed since the humans withdrew from their colonies. The Galactic Council gathered once more in their great chamber for what they called the Liberation Summit. Representatives from 18 different species filled the room. The air was thick with excitement and satisfaction. Ambassador Kelrix raised a ceremonial glass filled with glowing Thorin wine. The liquid shimmered with its own internal light, casting dancing shadows across his crystalline face. To the Council's unity, he declared, his voice ringing through the chamber. To our strength and wisdom. The aggressive expansion of the humans has been stopped without firing a single shot. We have achieved a perfect diplomatic victory. The assembled delegates erupted in cheers. Glasses clinked together. Aliens congratulated each other with gestures that ranged from gentle touches to enthusiastic headbutts, depending on their species. The Vrexian matriarch stood, her 6 eyes gleaming with pleasure. She was old even by the long-lived standards of her people, and her scaled skin had the deep purple color that came with age and wisdom. The human colonies now stand empty and ready for proper civilization, she said. The mining rights alone will enrich our people for generations. And we achieved this through negotiation and pressure. No war, no bloodshed, simply the application of proper diplomatic force. High Counselor Dravik of the Centauri Union laughed, a sound like an avalanche rumbling down a mountainside. He was massive even sitting down, his rocky skin pitted and worn from centuries of life. I must admit my surprise, he said, still chuckling. The humans have a reputation as warriors. We expected resistance. We prepared for conflict. Instead, they simply packed their belongings and left. Perhaps their reputation was nothing more than exaggeration and propaganda. In a corner of the chamber, away from the celebration, Ambassador Torin of the Arxian Collective sat alone. He was smaller than most of the delegates, barely 4 feet tall, with smooth gray skin and large dark eyes. He had said nothing during the summit, but his silence was the silence of concern, not agreement. Torin remembered the Krell incursion 15 years ago. His people had fought alongside human soldiers during that terrible conflict. He had watched humans hold defensive positions that should have been impossible to defend. He had seen their commanders make decisions that seemed insane but somehow worked. He had witnessed human soldiers sacrifice themselves to save Arxian civilians they had never met. The humans he knew did not simply give up. They did not surrender without cause. They certainly did not abandon 47 thriving colonies just because the council told them to. Counselors, Torrin spoke up, his quiet voice somehow cutting through the celebration. I must urge caution. In my experience with humans, they do not simply yield. This seems too easy. Kelrix turned to face him, and there was condescension in the movement. Your concern is noted, Ambassador Torrin, but it is unnecessary. Our intelligence services have confirmed that all human military vessels have withdrawn to their home system. Their navy is contained within their own space. Their colonies are empty of personnel. What more proof do you require? I require an understanding of human motivation, Torrin replied. They spent 2 centuries building those colonies. Millions of humans were born on those worlds. They invested incredible resources in development and infrastructure, and they abandoned it all without protest. Does this not seem strange to you? It seems like common sense, said the Vrexian matriarch. They recognized they were outmatched. They accepted reality. This is the behavior of a rational species. Drevek nodded agreement. Perhaps we misjudge them? Perhaps beneath all their military posturing, humans are actually a peaceful people who prefer to avoid conflict. Torrin said nothing more. He knew they would not listen. The council had made up their minds. They saw what they wanted to see, believed what they wanted to believe. He could only hope his concerns were wrong, but he did not think they were. What the council's intelligence services had not detected were the thousands of small objects drifting through space in the former human colonies. Objects that looked like debris, like the natural junk that accumulates in any populated star system. Broken satellites, discarded fuel pods, construction waste, except none of it was actually broken. None of it was actually waste. Every piece had been carefully placed, carefully disguised, and was now waiting patiently for activation. The council also did not know about the sleeper ships. These vessels had left Earth decades ago, long before the current crisis. They had traveled slowly, following carefully calculated paths, and were now positioned throughout council space. They drew minimal power. Their crews slept in suspended animation. They were invisible to all but the most thorough scans, and no one was looking for them. Most importantly, the council had not realized that every piece of human technology they had ever purchased contained a special feature. A backdoor, a way for human programmers to access the systems remotely if needed. It was standard human security practice, built into everything from power plants to communication networks to the coffee makers in council offices. Humans had been trading with the council for 100 years. Human technology was everywhere, and all of it was listening. On Earth, in the Mountain Command Center, Director Kyle Chen watched the council's celebration through a hacked security feed. Around him, his analysts monitored data streams from across the galaxy. They are very pleased with themselves, said Lieutenant Amy Brooks, watching the same feed. Their security protocols are at standard levels. They suspect nothing, Kyle nodded slowly. He felt no pleasure in what was about to happen. He had hoped, truly hoped, that the council would be reasonable, that they would allow humanity to exist in peace. But hope was not a strategy, and Kyle had not risen to his position by relying on hope. Begin Phase 2, he said quietly. Amy's fingers flew across her keyboard. Across the galaxy, signals went out. Automated systems received new orders. Hidden platforms powered up their primary systems. Sleeper ships began waking their crews. Phase 2 initiated, Amy confirmed. All assets report ready status. We can execute at any time. Not yet, Kyle said. Let them finish their celebration. Let them feel completely secure. Let them begin moving their people into our colonies, and then we remind them that humans never truly surrender. We simply change the battlefield. Back in the council chamber, the celebration continued into the night. Delegates made speeches about the new era of galactic harmony. They discussed which species would colonize which human worlds. They debated how to divide the mining rights and agricultural resources. Only Ambassador Torrin remained troubled. As the others celebrated, he accessed his personal communication device and sent a coded message to his homeworld. The message was simple. Monitor the situation closely. I believe we are missing something important. Recommend increased vigilance regarding human activity. His government responded immediately, trusting his judgment. Arxian intelligence began quietly watching for any unusual human behavior. Within hours, they detected anomalies, ships that should not exist, platforms that registered as debris but showed signs of power generation, communication signals that appeared to be random noise but followed suspiciously regular patterns. Torin received the preliminary report and felt his concern grow into genuine fear. The humans had not left. They had redeployed. Everything the Council thought it knew was wrong. He considered warning the Council. But what would he say? That he had a bad feeling? That humans were somehow hiding an entire military operation in plain sight? They would dismiss him as paranoid, just as they had dismissed his earlier warnings. So Torin did the only thing he could do. He ordered his people to begin evacuating their own personnel from the former human colonies. If he was wrong, it would be embarrassing. If he was right, it would save lives. 3 days after the Liberation Summit, the Council began sending settlement teams to the former human colonies. The first group consisted of Thoran engineers and colonists, eager to claim the valuable world of New Detroit. They arrived in a fleet of transport ships escorted by light military vessels. As they entered orbit, they marveled at what the humans had built. Cities that gleamed in the sunlight, infrastructure that appeared intact and functional. It was all theirs now, free for the taking. The lead engineer, a Thoran named Grexus, transmitted to his fleet. "Begin landing operations. This is going to be easier than we thought. The humans even left everything running for us." What Grexus did not know was that in the hidden chambers beneath New Detroit, automated systems were counting down. Defensive platforms in orbit were tracking every ship. And back on Earth, Director Kyle Chen was watching through cameras the Council did not know existed. "Sir," said Amy Brooks, "the Thorns are beginning their landing. Should we proceed?" Kyle looked at the screen showing the Thoran fleet. He thought about all the warnings humanity had given, all the attempts at peaceful coexistence, all the compromises humans had made over the years. The Council had answered with demands and ultimatums. "Proceed," he said. "Teach them the first lesson. But keep it non-lethal. We are not monsters." Amy nodded and sent the signal. On New Detroit, the countdown reached 0. Grexus stood in the main control center of New Detroit at exactly 3 a.m. station time. Around him, other Thoran engineers examined the human systems with growing admiration. Everything was so well designed, so efficient. The humans had built an impressive colony, and now it belonged to the Thoran people. "Power grid is stable," reported one engineer. "Life support operating at optimal levels. We should be able to bring down the main colonist fleet by morning." Grexus nodded with satisfaction. His crystalline body reflected the soft blue light of the control panels. This was going to be the easiest colonization operation in Thoran history. The hard work was already done. All they had to do was move in. Then, without warning, everything went dark. The lights died. The control panels went black. The gentle hum of the life support systems fell silent. In the sudden darkness, Grexus heard the confused sounds of his fellow engineers. "What happened?" someone called out. "Emergency backup power should activate," Grexus said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Give it a moment." But the backup systems did not activate. The darkness remained absolute. Grexus felt the first touch of real fear. Life support had gone offline. In a controlled environment like a space colony, that was a death sentence. They had perhaps 15 minutes before the air became dangerous. 30 minutes before it became lethal. "Get to the manual override systems," Grexus shouted. "Now!" His engineers fumbled in the darkness, trying to remember the layout of the control center. Someone found a portable light. The beam cut through the blackness like a knife. They rushed to the emergency panels, the ones that were supposed to work even if everything else failed. But the emergency panels were also dead. Nothing responded. It was as if the entire colony had simply ceased to exist. 14 minutes passed. Grexus could feel the air growing stale. His people were starting to panic. Some were praying to Thoran gods. Others were trying desperately to find any system that still worked. Then, as suddenly as they had died, the lights came back on. Every screen in the control center activated simultaneously. Every display showed the same message in 17 different languages, including Thoran. "You were warned. You did not listen. Withdraw from all human colonies within 72 hours or remain in permanent darkness. You will receive no second warning. Signed, humanity." Grexus stared at the message in horror. The humans had not left. They had not surrendered. They had been waiting. And now they had just demonstrated that they controlled everything in this colony. Everything. With a single command, they could kill everyone here, within 6 hours. The same thing happened on 19 other former human colonies. Different species, different locations, same result. The total system shut down. 14 minutes of terror. Then the lights came back on with the same message. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Kelrix stood in the center of the chamber, but this time there was no celebration in his posture. His crystalline body pulsed with an angry red color that betrayed his emotional state. "This is an act of war," he declared. "The humans are threatening civilian populations. We must respond with overwhelming military force. We must show them that such actions will not be tolerated." High Counselor Dravik nodded agreement. "We should assemble a battle fleet and move on their home system. Teach them the consequences of their aggression." "Aggression?" A new voice spoke up. All eyes turned to the observation gallery where Commander Eva Price sat calmly. She was the human observer to the Council, a position that existed for diplomatic courtesy. Eva was a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. She wore a simple Earth military uniform. "You wish to address the Council?" Kelrix asked coldly. "I do," Eva said. She stood and walked down to the main floor with confident steps. "You call this aggression. I call it property rights." "Property rights?" The Vrexian matriarch hissed. "You threaten to kill colonists and call it property rights." "Did we kill anyone?" Eva asked calmly. "No. We demonstrated control over systems we built. Systems we designed. Systems we paid for. You demanded we leave our colonies. We complied, we left. But nowhere in your demands did it say we had to give you access to our technology. The colonies are now Council territory," Dravik said. "Everything on them belongs to the Council." Eva smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Does it? Because from where I stand, you occupy buildings you cannot control. You depend on infrastructure you do not understand. You are living in houses we built, and you never thought to ask if we kept the keys." Kelrix stepped forward. His body was now glowing bright red with anger. "Are you threatening this Council, Commander?" "No, Ambassador. I am explaining reality. Every system on those 47 worlds was designed and built by humans. Every power plant, every water recycler, every air filtration system. We could have destroyed them all when we left. We chose not to. We left them functional as a gesture of goodwill. But they are still our systems. They still respond to our commands. This is unacceptable," said the Vrexian matriarch. "No species has the right to weaponize infrastructure." "Then you should not have taken infrastructure that did not belong to you," Eva replied. Her voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the words. "Let me make this very simple. You have 72 hours to withdraw all occupation forces from human colonies. If you do so, the systems will stabilize and transfer to autonomous operation. You can then attempt to understand and control them on your own." "And if we refuse?" Kelrix demanded. "Then you will discover exactly how deeply integrated human technology is into those colonies. Every system, every subsystem, every backup and failsafe, all designed by humans, all controlled by humans, all waiting for our commands." Ambassador Torrens stood up from his seat. "Commander Price, what is your government's official position on this matter?" Eva turned to face him. "Earth's government maintains that we complied with every Council directive. We withdrew from the colonies as demanded. What happens to unmaintained infrastructure after our departure is not our responsibility. However, we are willing to negotiate a proper transfer of technology and control for appropriate compensation." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some delegates demanded military action. Others called for sanctions. A few, the wiser ones, began to understand the trap they had walked into. The Council had seized territory, but they could not actually use it without human cooperation. Every world they occupied was a potential death trap. The humans could turn off life support, disable power generation, or shut down water recycling at any moment. The colonists were hostages to technology they did not control. "This is blackmail," Kelrix said. "No," Eva corrected. "This is negotiation. You made demands. We made concessions. Now we are making counter-demands. That is how diplomacy works, Ambassador. Or did you think it only flowed one direction?" High Counselor Dravik stood. His massive form made the floor tremble. The Council does not negotiate with terrorists. Then do not treat us like targets, Eva said. You wanted us gone, we left. You wanted our colonies. You took them. Now you are learning that ownership and control are not the same thing. You own the land. We control what makes the land livable. If you want true ownership, you will negotiate fairly. If you want to fight, you will discover that shutting down life support was just our opening demonstration. What does that mean? Asked a delegate from the Rexian swarm. Eva's smile was genuinely frightening now. It means you are only beginning to understand how much human technology exists in your space. How many ships did you purchase from human manufacturers over the last century? How many power plants did human engineers help you build? How many communication networks run on human-designed systems? And you never thought to ask if we built in remote access? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans had been part of galactic commerce for 100 years. Their technology was everywhere. Their engineers had worked on projects across council space, and apparently they had prepared for this exact situation. You planned this, Kelrick said quietly. From the beginning, you wanted us to occupy the colonies. We hoped you would leave us alone, Eva said, but we prepared for the possibility that you would not. Hope is not a strategy, Ambassador. Preparation is, and humans are very, very good at preparation. Torrin spoke again. Commander Price, if the Council agrees to negotiate, what exactly does humanity want? Recognition of our sovereignty over the 47 colony worlds. A formal apology from the Council. Revision of the expansion protocols to prevent this situation from occurring with other species. And most importantly, a mutual defense and trade agreement based on respect rather than intimidation. You want us to give back everything we took, said the Rexian matriarch. I want you to return what was never yours to take. Eva corrected. There is a difference. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested simply abandoning the colonies and pretending none of this had ever happened. But in the end, they all knew the truth. The humans had outmaneuvered them. The trap was complete. The Council could either negotiate or face the consequences. As the session finally ended, Kelrix approached Eva privately. When did you plan all this? He asked. When did humanity decide to set this trap? The Galactic Council rejected humanity's demands. Ambassador Kelrix delivered the response himself during a public transmission that reached across Council space. The Council does not bend to threats, he declared. We will not be intimidated by infrastructure sabotage. We are assembling technical teams to override human systems. We will take proper control of the colonies through our own expertise, and we are deploying military forces to ensure no further interference. On Earth, Director Kyle Chen watched the transmission with General Pete Harris standing beside him. When it ended, Pete shook his head slowly. Pride, he said. It gets you every time. They cannot admit they made a mistake, so they will compound it with an even bigger one. How long until they learn? Kyle asked. Not long, Pete replied. They just declared their intention to hack our systems and moved military forces into position. That gives us everything we need to proceed to Phase 3. Kyle nodded. Execute Operation Homecoming. Full deployment. The orders went out immediately. Across human space and beyond, ships and platforms that had been waiting in silent darkness came to life. On New Detroit, Thoran engineers worked frantically to bypass the human control systems. They had brought their best technical experts, specialists who had studied human technology for years. But as they worked, they encountered problem after problem. Every system had layers of security they had never seen before. Passwords changed automatically every few seconds. Encryption protocols adapted to counter their hacking attempts. And whenever they thought they were making progress, they discovered another layer of protection underneath. It is like fighting a living thing, one engineer reported in frustration. The systems are defending themselves. Every time we find a way in, they close it and open new defenses elsewhere. Grexus coordinated the efforts from the main control center. He had hoped to have full access within hours. It had now been 3 days and they had accomplished nothing. The human systems remained completely locked down. Keep trying, he ordered. The Council is counting on us. What Grexus did not know was that the systems were not just defending themselves. They were also gathering intelligence. Every hacking attempt was recorded. Every technique was analyzed. The automated systems were learning how the Thorans thought, how they worked, how they tried to solve problems, and they were reporting everything back to Earth. Meanwhile, the Council military assembled a fleet to intimidate humanity. 30 warships gathered at New Detroit, an overwhelming show of force. The fleet included vessels from 5 different species, all heavily armed and equipped with the latest weapons technology. Admiral Krenth of the Thorin Navy commanded the fleet from his flagship. He was old and experienced, having fought in 3 major wars during his long career. He looked at the tactical display showing the New Detroit system and smiled with satisfaction. Only 7 human ships detected, he reported to the Council. They are outnumbered 4-1. This will be a short confrontation. What Admiral Krenth did not see were the thousands of objects drifting through the system. Objects his sensors registered as debris, broken satellites, discarded construction materials, space junk. On the bridge of the human ship Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison watched the Council fleet with calm eyes. His ship was smaller than the Thoran flagship, but he showed no concern about the odds. "Status?" he asked. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant checked her displays. "All hidden assets are in position. Stealth fleet is ready. We are waiting for your order, Captain." "Tactical assessment?" "They are overconfident. Their formation is designed to intimidate, not to fight. They think this is a show of force, not an actual battle. They are wrong." Jake allowed himself a small smile. "Open a channel to the Council fleet." The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, sir." "Council fleet, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of human territorial sovereignty. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Admiral Krenth's laughing response came immediately. "Captain Morrison, you expect us to fear empty threats? We count only 7 human vessels against our 30 capital ships. Your position is hopeless. Stand down and no harm will come to you." "Admiral, you are not counting correctly," Jake said calmly. "You are only seeing what we want you to see. Let me help you understand your true situation." Jake gave a hand signal. Lisa entered commands into her console. Throughout the New Detroit system, thousands of objects suddenly activated. What the Council had dismissed as debris revealed itself as functional hardware. Defense platforms powered up. Weapon systems came online. Electronic warfare pods began broadcasting jamming signals. And most shocking of all, another 24 human warships decloaked throughout the system. They had been there all along, invisible to Council sensors, waiting patiently for this exact moment. Admiral Krenth stared at his tactical display in horror as his ship's sensors were overwhelmed. Jamming filled every communication frequency. Targeting systems went haywire. His entire fleet was suddenly blind. Surrounded by enemies they could not see clearly, facing weapons they could not track. "This is impossible," Krenth breathed. "Our intelligence said the human fleet was contained in their home system." "How are you here?" "Your intelligence was manipulated, Admiral," Jake replied. "We let you see exactly what we wanted you to see. While you watched our civilian fleet withdraw, our military was deploying throughout Council space. We have been in position for months. You just could not see us because we did not want you to? You have stealth technology? We have a lot of things, Admiral. Better engines, better weapons, better sensors, and much, much better planning. Now I am going to ask you one more time, withdraw your fleet or the next demonstration will involve weapons instead of sensors." Krenth looked at his tactical officer. "Can we fight?" The officer shook his head. "Sir, we are blind. Our targeting is compromised. We cannot even see all their ships clearly. If they open fire, we will be destroyed before we can effectively return fire." Krenth felt rage and humiliation war inside him. His fleet was supposed to intimidate the humans into submission. Instead, he had sailed into an ambush. The humans had been waiting for him, prepared for him, and had just demonstrated that his vaunted fleet was completely outmatched. "Fleet orders," he said quietly. "Withdraw to the edge of the system. Maintain defensive formation." "Wise choice, Admiral," Jake said. "And Admiral? Tell the Council that we have ships like this in every major system in Council space. Tell them we have been there for months. Tell them that we are not the weak species they thought we were." The Council fleet retreated. Within hours, word spread across the galaxy. The human military had not withdrawn. They had redeployed. They had stealth technology that made them invisible. They had weapons platforms hidden in every former colony. And they had been preparing for this confrontation for far longer than anyone realized. In the Council chambers, the debate reached new levels of intensity. The military situation had changed completely. Humanity was not weak. They were not contained. They were everywhere, watching, waiting, and more than capable of defending themselves. How did we miss this? The Vrexian matriarch demanded. How did our intelligence fail so completely? Because we saw what we wanted to see, Ambassador Torrin said quietly. I tried to warn you. I told you humans do not simply surrender, but you did not listen. You assumed their cooperation meant weakness. You mistook patience for inability. What do we do now? Asked a delegate from the Centauri Union. Now we negotiate, said Kelrix, his crystalline body dimmed with defeat. Because the alternative is a war we cannot win. High Counselor Dravik stood. We cannot show weakness. If we negotiate now, every species in the galaxy will think they can threaten the Council. Better to look weak than to be destroyed, Torrin said. The humans have proven they can blind our fleets, disable our colonies, and strike anywhere in Council space without warning. They could have destroyed Admiral Krenth's fleet. They chose not to. They are offering us a path to peace. I strongly suggest we take it. The vote was close, but the Council finally agreed to open formal negotiations with humanity. They would discuss terms. They would seek compromise. They would do what they should have done from the beginning. Treat humanity as equals rather than inferiors. On the Defiant, Jake Morrison received word that the Council had agreed to negotiate. He felt relief wash over him. War had been avoided. The threat had worked. Humanity would survive. Stand down to alert status, he ordered. Keep weapons ready, but do not engage unless fired upon. Let the politicians handle it from here. Sir, Lisa said, do you think the peace will last? For a while, Jake said. Until they forget this lesson and need to be taught again. But that is a problem for another day. Today we survived. That is enough. Throughout human space, millions of people breathed easier. The crisis had passed. The colonies were safe. And the Galactic Council had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity. The lesson was simple. Never mistake patience for weakness, preparation for paranoia, or silence for surrender. Because sometimes the quietest species in the room is also the most dangerous. 1 month after the standoff at New Detroit, Ambassador Kelrix found himself doing something he never imagined possible. He was requesting a meeting with human leadership to discuss terms of surrender. Not human surrender, Council surrender. The meeting took place on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Neither side wanted to show weakness by traveling to the other's territory. The station was small, built centuries ago as a trading post, and now served mostly as a place for species to meet when they did not fully trust each other. Kelrix arrived with a small delegation. They were met by Director Kyle Chen, Commander Eva Price, and Captain Jake Morrison. The humans wore simple uniforms without decoration. They did not need to display their power. Everyone knew what they were capable of now. The meeting room was plain, a simple table, basic chairs adjusted for different body types, soft lighting that did not favor any particular species. This was a place for honest discussion, not political theater. Ambassador, Kyle greeted him without warmth. I am told you wish to negotiate. Kelrix sat down carefully. His crystalline body had lost its bright luster. He looked dimmed, almost gray. The weight of his failure sat heavily on him. The Council miscalculated, he said quietly. We failed to understand human capabilities. We mistook your diplomatic approach for weakness. We assumed your patience meant you lacked the will to fight. We were wrong about all of it. Yes, you were, Eva said. There was no gloating in her voice, just a statement of fact. You saw our willingness to negotiate as surrender. You confused strategic withdrawal with defeat. You made the oldest mistake in warfare. You assumed your enemy was weak because they chose not to fight. Jake leaned forward, his elbows on the table. Let me be very clear, Ambassador. We could have fought from the beginning. We have the ships. We have the weapons. We have the training. But war costs lives. Millions of lives on both sides. We decided that those lives were worth saving. So we left our colonies, set our trap, and waited for you to overreach, which you did exactly as we predicted. What are your terms? Kelrix asked. He sounded tired. Kyle slid a data tablet across the table. Recognition of human sovereignty over all 47 colony worlds. Formal apology from the Council for attempting to force our withdrawal. Revision of expansion protocols to ensure this situation cannot happen to other species. And most importantly, a mutual defense and trade agreement based on respect and equality. Kelrix picked up the tablet and reviewed the terms. They were harsh but not cruel. Humanity was not asking for reparations or punitive measures. They simply wanted what they had always wanted, to be left alone to live in peace. And if the Council refuses these terms? Kelrix asked, though he already knew the answer. Eva's smile was cold. Then you discover that every piece of human technology in Council space contains similar backdoors. Every ship you purchased from us. Every computer system we sold you. Every power plant we helped you build over the last century. We can disable half the Council's infrastructure with a single command. We will not do it because we are not tyrants. But you need to understand that humanity's greatest weapon is not our military. It is our preparation. And our patience, Jake added. We think in generations, not years. We plan for outcomes decades in the future. We prepare for situations that might never happen. Because when they do happen, we want to survive. Kelrix was silent for a long moment. He had spent his entire life believing the Thorans were the most advanced species in the galaxy. That the Council represented the peak of civilization. That younger species like humanity needed to be guided and controlled for their own good. All of those beliefs had been shattered in the last month. When you left, he said slowly, we celebrated. We thought we had achieved a perfect diplomatic victory. We believed we had put humanity in its proper place without firing a single shot. But you were already 10 steps ahead, were you not? 12 steps, actually, Jake said with a slight smile. You also have not discovered the sleeper fleet yet. Kelrix felt something cold settle in his chest. There is more? Kyle nodded. Ambassador, humanity has been preparing for potential conflict since the day we met you. Since the day we met any alien species. We did not do this because we wanted war. We did it because we wanted to survive. The galaxy is not always kind to newcomers. We learned that lesson from studying history. We made sure it would not happen to us. The sleeper fleet, Kelrix said. What is it? Ships that left Earth decades ago, Eva explained. Traveling slowly using minimal power. Following carefully calculated paths. They have crews in suspended animation. Right now they are positioned throughout Council space, waiting for activation orders. We could wake them up and have a full battle fleet in your core systems within hours. We chose not to because we prefer peace. By how many ships? Enough, Kyle said. That is all you need to know. The point, Ambassador, is that humanity never does anything halfway. We hope for the best. We prepare for the worst. We build redundancies into our redundancies, and we never ever assume that peace is permanent. Kelrix looked at the three humans. He realized something important. They were not angry. They were not gloating. They were simply being honest. This was how humanity operated. This was how they had survived and thrived in a dangerous galaxy. Your species is terrifying, he said. Only to those who threaten us, Eva replied. To our friends and allies, we are loyal, generous, and supportive. The Arxians know this. During the Krell incursion, human soldiers died protecting Arxian civilians. We do not forget our friends, but we also do not forget our enemies. We are not your enemies, Kelrix said quickly. Then accept our terms and become our partners, Kyle said. We are offering you peace with honor, take it. Because the alternative is peace through your submission, and neither of us wants that. Kelrix stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Kyle stood and shook it. I will take these terms to the Council, Kelrix said. I believe they will accept. The alternative is too terrible to consider. One more thing, Jake said. When you present our terms, make sure the Council understands something. We did not do this to show dominance. We did not do this for conquest or glory. We did this to protect our people and our right to exist. If the Council respects that right, we will be the best allies you could ask for. If the Council threatens that right, we will be the worst enemy you can imagine. Kelrix returned to the Council chambers 2 days later. He presented humanity's terms to the assembled delegates. The debate was long and heated. Some wanted to reject the terms and fight. Others argued for acceptance. In the end, reality won over pride. The vote was unanimous in favor of accepting humanity's terms. The resolution passed and formal documents were prepared. Within a week, the Galactic Council officially recognized human sovereignty over all 47 colony worlds. A formal apology was issued. New protocols for expansion and colonization were drafted and approved. As the session concluded, Ambassador Torrin approached Kelrix in the corridor outside the chamber. I tried to warn you. Torrin said gently. I told you humans do not simply surrender. I know, Kelrix admitted. I should have listened. Your people fought beside them. You knew what they were capable of. The humans have a saying, Torrin said. Speak softly and carry a big stick. The council heard their soft speech and assumed they carried nothing. We forgot to check for the stick. Now we know better. Yes, Kelrix agreed. Now we know better. On Earth, Director Kyle Chen stood at the observation deck of his Mountain Command Center. He looked up at the stars through the reinforced glass. Beside him, Captain Jake Morrison sipped coffee from a plain mug. Do you think it will last? Jake asked. The peace? For now, Kyle replied. The Council will remember this lesson for a generation, maybe two. Then memories will fade. New leaders will rise who did not experience this crisis. They will see our patience and mistake it for weakness, and we will have to teach the lesson again. That seems exhausting. It is, Kyle agreed, but it beats the alternative. Every confrontation we win through preparation is a war we do not have to fight. Every war we avoid is millions of lives saved on both sides. I can live with exhaustion if it means fewer graves. Jake raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. To staying quiet and carrying big sticks. Kyle smiled and touched his own mug to Jake's, to hoping we never have to use them. High above them, the stars gleamed in the darkness. 47 human colonies stood secure and recognized. Throughout the galaxy, thousands of automated systems, weapons platforms, and hidden ships remained in place, silent and watchful. Humanity had left their colonies quietly when the Council demanded it. The Council had celebrated their victory too soon, and then humanity had reminded the galaxy of an important truth. The quietest species in the room is often the most dangerous. The Galactic Council would not forget that lesson for a very long time. And humanity? Humanity would continue doing what they had always done. They would hope for peace. They would prepare for war. They would build relationships with allies and respect with rivals. They would be patient, diplomatic, and reasonable, right up until the moment they needed to be something else, because that was the human way. Speak softly, plan carefully, prepare thoroughly, and if forced to show the stick, make sure it is big enough that you only need to show it once.